We are back for another edition of the Awesemo NASCAR Strategy Shows. We're here to get you ready for tomorrow's NASCAR race. Of course, hopefully you've been checking out all the content that we have over at Awesemo.com. So start lining up those questions right now in our chat, whether that's in our premium Slack channel or also right here on YouTube, as we are going to break down this race for you. Of course, as always, we will break it down into tiers from tier 1 to tier 4 based on their DraftKings side. We'll talk a little roster construction, dominator build, place differential, how many dominators you need in your lineups tomorrow for your NASCAR DFS. But of course, always here on a Saturday, I am joined by Phill, aka Race Sheets. You can follow him on Twitter at Race Sheets DFS. Phill, before we get into tomorrow's race, let's talk a little bit about last week, which, plain and simple, just the way to put it is, if you did not have Martin Truex Jr. in your lineups, you did not cash because you absolutely need him. 137 points on DraftKings. He led 248 laps.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it's that simple, but when you lead that much of the race and you win the race, if you didn't have him, then probably by the middle of the race, I'm going to say probably by the end of the second segment, if you didn't have Truex, you already knew what your day was going to look like, and you were just sitting on the edge of your seat hoping for a wreck or something, a bad engine, something to just knock him back and try to level the field and make it possible for the rest of your drivers to be optimal. But God, it was not going to work. It was not going to work last Sunday. Truex was a machine. The weather, the track conditions were just absolutely perfect for him to thrive. And now we transition to another 750 horsepower package race, another short track here at Dover. It's a mile long, another steeply banked track. Now the tire wear is not going to be as dramatic as what we witnessed last week at Darlington. The heat's not going to be as dramatic either. We're looking at race temperatures in the low to mid 70s, but still, this is a track that Truex has just been absolutely fantastic at. So if you took the stand last week that you were going to fade Truex, I really hope that you're not taking that same stand this week, because you could be paying the rake.
Yeah, unfortunately, I did not have enough Martin Truex Jr. As I mentioned, you didn't have him. You were not cashing last week. Of course, people have been able to read your articles this week over at Awesemo.com. And one of the bold headlines you had was Darlington equal Dover?
Right. For the last couple of years, trying to find any sort of corollary to Dover was a bit of a tough task. I mean, we've got other mile-long racetracks here on the circuit. Like, we've got Phoenix, we've got Richmond, we've got New Hampshire. But when you consider the banking of those tracks versus those three previous tracks, they're nowhere close. Now, New Hampshire and Richmond technically have what's called progressive banking, but I mean, it's not close to what we're going to witness at Dover today in the Xfinity race, and then tomorrow in the Cup race. Now, we do have another short track that has similar banking. That would be Bristol. But I mean, when you're talking about a half-mile track where you're running 14, 15-second laps versus what we're going to see at Dover, it's a bit of a, I want to say the apples are similar, but the apples are also pretty dissimilar, where you can't really use one to judge the other. Plus, we lost our Bristol race from the spring so that they could put dirt on it. So you can't really use that corollary. And if you wanted to, you might say, okay, well, let me look at what happened at Atlanta, what happened at Homestead, because, we've got high tire wear tracks, we've got the steep banking, but once again, different packages. So most years, this has been a real tough track where you just say, okay, all I can do is really look at previous races from Dover. But we have this gift in Darlington, which is, just about a third of a mile longer, similar banking, and this year the same package. So we take what we saw at Darlington last week, which was total dominance by Truex and not much else going on, and then we can apply that this week at Dover.
Before we get into this race and how we're building our rosters, do want to let you know, if you ever do miss this show, you can check it apart on the Awesemo Podcast Network. Just go to awesemo.com/podcast to find the Awesemo NASCAR podcast. Of course, you can check out all the podcasts there. You see it there on the screen. And be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review with your Twitter handle or email address. You'll be entered in to win a free week of Awesemo Plus Platinum. One winner will be awarded every Friday, and reviews are eligible to win up to 1 year. Now, we talk about roster construction. I guess the question is, obviously 2 dominator build, but if you do want to go to a 3 dominator build, you're gonna have to dig low. So is pretty much the recommendation this week is, you can try to build a 3 dominator, but 2 dominator is likely where you're going to go.
Yeah, you're going to like your 2 dominator builds a whole lot better than your 3 dominator builds. And part of this problem is that the guys that we all want to use as potential lap leaders, Truex, Hamlin, and Larson, they're all above 11K this week. So when you take 3 drivers at that price range and you try to jam them in, and then you look at what you've got left remaining, you're not just double punting, you're almost triple punting. And they're without just sheer attrition. And for those who are wondering, the caution numbers that we've seen at Dover the past couple of years, and this is removing the stage cautions, we're talking 5 and 2 in last year's 2 Dover races, 1, 4, and then in 2018, 3 and 6. I mean, we've had a spike of 15. It was a June 4th, 2017 race where we had 15 cautions. But other than that, this is generally a low caution race. So if we're not going to get that kind of attrition that we need for these punt plays to work, then you definitely can't go with a top heavy lineup built with those 3 in it. Yeah, you're probably gathering all of the potential dominator points. But what if Truex, Hamlin, or Larson, what if they're not part of that group? What if it's Kyle Busch? What if it happens to be Kevin Harvick? What if it's somebody else? Then you are paying 11K for a top 5, a top 10 finish. And then you're hoping for the punt plays to come through and, scratch and claw their way to 5X value. It's going to put you in a really, really tough position this week. So I think for cash, and for tournaments, you're looking at a 2 dominator build. And heck, even when you look at the laps led data sheet here in the race sheets, last 6 races here with the stage cautions, we've had 2 races where only 2 drivers have been dominators, and then we've had 3 races where 3 dominators. We've had 3 dominators, but even in those races where we've had 3 dominators, that 3rd dominator isn't leading. Really a total of laps that gathers your attention. They're leading maybe 40, 50 laps. And when you take that this week, you're getting, let's just say 15 extra bonus points if you're going to lead 40, 50 laps and then whatever fastest laps are involved in that process. So at the extent of it, do I want to pay 11K or 10K for 60 points? Probably not. These guys that I'm paying 11K for, I need them to be knocking on the door of 100 fantasy points here on DraftKings.
Mention this question in the YouTube chat. It says, would I be wrong if I build a 1 dominator line with drivers that does well at this track to be different?
Yeah, I mean, and heck, if we are going to use what happened at Darlington as any indication to what is going to happen this week, then I mean, there's no reason to say, no, we can't, the 1 dominator build, that was way too fluky. And yeah, it happened last week, but don't bet on it again. I mean, heck, if that happened last week, I don't see anything, since this is just a week later, that's going to prevent that very thing from happening again. So if you want to go with a scenario where only 1 guy is going to be a dominator, lead the majority of laps, and then kind of go with more more balanced, go with these place differential drivers like Kurt Busch, Eric Almirola, Matty D, Cole Custer, blah 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 blah. I mean, yeah, that's a path that you can take. I'm just going to say that if you look at the laps led data page, since 2013, we've only had one race here where it was a single dominator. That was the fall 2015 race. And we had a guy that lead 355 of 400 laps. But other than that, every other race has been a 2 or a 3 dominator race.
Another question about roster construction is how much can we take into account the drivers that won or placed high in the Xfinity Series here, for example, like Briscoe or Chastain?
It's something to reference. It gives you a little bit of hope. Like we're going to talk about Christopher Bell. He won here twice. We've got Cole Custer, who's a former winner here. Now his win came through some weird attrition scenario where oil was on the track and the leaders all slid through it, and Custer was able to win that race. But yeah, I think that this is a track that, yeah, the car that you have will matter in the end, but this is also a matter of skill. So if we can have a driver like a Custer, like a Chastain, like a Briscoe, blah 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 blah, that have performed well here in the Xfinity Series, it gives you something to build upon for your enthusiasm for tomorrow.
Of course, appreciate everyone that's watching us here on YouTube. If you're not subscribed to Awesemo on YouTube, you want to hit that subscribe button because we have a ton of shows for you each and every day. Of course, right before us was the NBA Live Before Lock show, as we are on the eve of the end of the NBA regular season. Of course, we'll be here tomorrow. Myself and Eric will get you ready for the final day of NBA tomorrow night. But a ton of great program we have. Of course, come up here later today. You got UFC Live Before Lock with myself and Josh. Then following us will be MLB Live Before Lock. So hit that notification bell so you know when a new show is live on the channel. And of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. We always do appreciate that as well. But let's get into tier number one. This will be the drivers that are 10K and above over on DraftKings. So we've got Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, and Kyle Busch. The only one in this group that is not starting in the top 10 is Brad Keselowski. So let's just start off with Brad since he is starting 15th, 10-3 over on DraftKings, 11,000 over on FanDuel.
I can't do Keselowski. I want to have enthusiasm for Keselowski, but he's missing his crew chief again. This will be the second week that he's missed Jeremy Bullins in a row. This will be his third race without Bullins. And in the previous two races that we've seen Keselowski miss his crew chief, it's been disastrous. Whatever they're doing setup wise, whatever calls they're making on the track, whoever, I'm not even too sure who's serving as his interim crew chief in these scenarios, but whatever decisions that the two team is making without Bullins, it is not working. That car was set up horribly from the beginning last week. That was one of the things I immediately regretted. But before the race started, I thought to myself, why am I so high on Keselowski without his crew chief? I already saw how this worked at Atlanta, and it didn't end up well. And we saw the same thing happen again in that race last week. I mean, the setup was horrible. He got passed by Harvick early, fell back into the 20s, and the car was just a mess. And I don't have any hope for him this week. He's been all right here at Dover the last 6 races. He's got a best finish of 6th. A lot of finishes between 8th through 15. So that's where he's been. It's nothing fantastic. And now you're taking that driver priced above 10K, priced above 11, priced at 11K on FanDuel, and you're taking away his crew chief. And we've seen what it's done to him the last couple of races without his crew chief. I think that I'm going to take the stand, even in 150 lineups on FanDuel. I'm not going to play Keselowski. I just don't have any hope for him.
Looking at the rest of this tier, let's start with the pole setter in Martin Truex Jr., the most expensive driver over on both slates, 11,900 on DraftKings. He is 14,000 on FanDuel. And if you want to take him over on the super draft side of the things, he is a straight up 1 multiplier in that flex position. If you want to make him the champion, 1.5. Of course, we saw what he did last week, and we just mentioned a little while ago, you had to have him in your lineup. Is Martin Truex Jr. a smash play for you this week?
God, based on what we saw last week, I don't know how he can't be. Now, yes, his projected ownership is looking to be one of the higher ones, if not one of the highest owned drivers, but it's not, it's not out of this world. So, I mean, you don't have to go crazy with ownership in your 20 max or 150 max in order to get above the field. The pole sitter he's done fantastic over the last 6 races here. The worst finish is 17th in the second Dover race, but if people remember, that was an invert race where they took the top 20, flipped them around, kept everybody who started 21st through 40th. Where they finished is where they started in the second race. So your pole sitter in that second race ended up finishing 17th, but the rest of these finishes, there's no wins, but we've got a fifth, an eighth, and a 10th, averaging 70.3 laps led over those 6 races, 25.7 fastest laps. I mean, the driver has just been running phenomenal. You look at Truex, how he's done here, the Dominator points, they're so. They, oddly enough, look a lot like what was going on at Darlington before last week. His finishes, fantastic. Second, first, a 15th in the fall 2018 race, and then 4th. So we've got a former winner here. We've got a guy that continues to run strong here, regardless of what package they're running. This is the 750 horsepower package. 3 wins out of 4 races for Truex. You combine the 2 Dover races and Darlington race from last week. He's got 35 fastest laps per race, 112 laps led, average running position of 4.1, average finish of 1.7. All of the numbers just say this should just once again be a smash spot for him.
I think the only concern I have is if you go and looking at the DraftKings side of the equation, this one. So if we take an 11,900 Martin Truex Jr. And let's just say, and looking at a little bit of ownership here, I think a popular pairing him with one of those drivers would be Denny Hamlin at 11,100. At that point on DraftKings, your average remaining per driver, 6,750.
Yeah. And that's exactly why I said that if you try to add in a third dominator to this equation, it really makes things tight. And I think because there's 400 laps, a lot of people will convince themselves that yes, the triple dominator build with these guys up top is the way to go. And there's going to be a lot of overlapping lineups with those 3, mixing and matching around with all the different punt plays. But yeah, DraftKings has made lineup construction tough this week. They priced up everybody who should be priced up, putting Truex at nearly $12,000. The guy that's starting next to him is just a hair above 11K, and then you've got Larson right in the middle, but between them. This is going to be a tough week to make lineups gel. It does worry you that there's going to be a lot of people that are going to go Truex Hamlin and then mix and matching guys in the 7Ks and the 6Ks, or Truex Larson and doing the same thing. So when we get down to that tier, we'll talk about these guys, but you're probably going to have to make some uncomfortable plays just to find some pivots for ownership's sake.
Mentioning about the rest of this tier, so we got Kyle Larson, 11,500, Denny Hamlin, 11,100, Chase Elliott, 10,700, Kyle Busch, 10,000. Let's first of all start off with Kyle Larson starting in the 4th position.
Yeah. Last week, it's a weird circumstance of he's got a fast car, he's moving up through the field, and then there's a pit road penalty, and he's having to start this whole process over again. It wasn't until the end of the 3rd segment that we finally saw Larson get up to Truex, and he got to his bumper, but he was never able to make the pass. And the logical explanation is that he probably used up his tires in the process of getting to Truex, and then had nothing left to get to him, because once he got to his bumper, and then it was the matter of moving through traffic. That's when we saw Larson fall back by a couple of seconds. But you're taking this super fast car. Larson, the last time that he was here, the fall race of 2019, he ended up winning that race. The spring race in 2019, he ended up finishing 3rd. High bank track. We know Larson loves to ride the rail to get around faster at venues like this. this should be another really good race for Larson. The only question is, are we going to see dominator points out of Larson? If it's the 550 horsepower package, we undoubtedly see them out of Larson. He comes fast. He's got the best car. He's probably the best driver in that package this year. He's a no doubt play when it comes to that package. But in this package, just weird circumstances continue to happen to this 5 team where we don't see him necessarily out front. And without those, that being out front, he's not able to get those fastest laps. He's not able to get those laps led. He's not able to necessarily pay off that high salary. Now, last week he ended up in the optimal lineup, but it took a lot of attrition throughout the field. It took some place differential on his part because he started 14th, but he did enough to make that optimal lineup. With him starting 4th this week at 11.5, you need dominator points out of Larson. And out of all these guys in the 11K range, I think Larson's the guy that I'm going to say is probably the 3rd most likely to be a dominator out of Truex and Hamlin.
Yeah, as hearing you talk, it makes me think about what I was doing last night in NBA of putting together Russell Westbrook and Jokic in the same lineup, and I found myself in a very much stars and scrubs type build there. Chase Elliott starting 8th. What's your take on him? He is 10,700 on DraftKings, 12,500 over on FanDuel.
God, I want to like Elliott because this is a track that he's done well at before. He won the spring 2018 race here. He's finished 5th here a couple of times, but then he's also got a couple of DNFs. I think he had some weird wreck at the end of that Dover race in the second Dover race last year, and then in that 2019 race, I'm not too sure what happened there, but he finished 38th. The matter of the fact is that he's been way too inconsistent this year, especially in this package. Starting 8th at 10,700, the script is you need dominator points, and I just don't think that I'm getting those out of Elliott right now. If you just want to talk about purely his finishes this year, like we've got 5th at Phoenix, which is encouraging. And then you've got 2nd at Martinsville, you've got 12th at Richmond, and then you've got 7th at Darlington. So yeah, he's going to give you a top 10 finish, which is fantastic. But when it comes to these dominator points, they are just not there. And at 10.7, I need those points.
Kyle Busch is the other driver this year that I really haven't touched on much. He is starting 6th, 10,000 over on DraftKings, 12,000 over on FanDuel. And if you are a super draft player, a 1.2 multiplier in the flex, 1.8 as champion.
Yeah, Kyle is a driver that I find myself warming up to more and more. And I think that if you went with a 3 dominator build where you took 2 of those guys priced above 11K and then threw in Kyle as a 3rd dominator, well, yeah, it's still tough, but you're leaving yourself probably an extra $1,000 to play with when it comes to how many punts that you're having to get in your lineup. But heck, you could look at a scenario where it's just Truex and Kyle, and then you go with the place differential plays after that. You don't feel quite so squirmish about the lineup that you're building. Yeah, Kyle's been really good in the 550 horsepower package this year. His numbers in the 750 horsepower package, they hadn't been that great, but it's definitely encouraging to see the top 3 finish out of Kyle last week. And if last week's going to be any indication of what to expect this week, then we should definitely keep our eyes on Kyle. And I mean, Kyle got passed by Truex early, and then he cut down a tire getting into the wall and spun out. But he did what a lot of people didn't do last week. He drove through the field, got his way back up into the top 5, and he hung out there for the rest of the day. So that really has my prospects on Kyle as a potential dominator high.
Of course, be sure to check out today's free premium tools and data over at Awesemo.com, which is NBA player rankings, MLB top stacks, NHL main slate top stacks and also the MMA fighter rankings. And we do have a promo going on. You see it there in the YouTube chat for new Also Plus users with nearly every DFS sport in season. And of course, the NBA and NHL are heading into the playoffs. It's a great time to be a DFS player. Pick up your first month of Also Plus Platinum for 25% off when you use the promo code GOLDRUSH. That's promo code GOLDRUSH, one word, all caps. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools on Awesemo.com, including player projections, ownership projections, our premium Slack channel, lineup builder, and so much more. You don't want to miss this one. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Awesemo Plus today. There you see it right there on the screen. Use that promo code GOLDRUSH, one word, all caps, to get 25% off a month of Also Platinum monthly. So be sure to check out that. Speaking of that premium Slack channel, I will be in the office hours channel following this show talking UFC 262. So if you do have any UFC questions before lock, I will be in their office hours Slack channel. But let's move on to tier number 2. This will be the drivers in the 9K and 8K range. So we've got Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano, Alex Bowman, William Byron, Kurt Busch, Ryan Blaney, Eric Almirola, and Christopher Bell. So let's start off here. I think the two we really need to talk on is, first off, is Kurt Busch and Eric Almirola, because there is some place differential there with both these guys. Kurt Busch starting 28th, Eric Almirola starting 32nd, 8,700 on DK for Kurt, Almirola 8,200.
Yeah. And if people are, and I get it, there should be some legitimate concern, because it seems like, God, week after week, what is wrong with Eric Almirola? Why does he keep finishing in these positions? And if you're not watching the races, like, you're just simply looking at the stat sheet, watching the video, reading an article, building some lineups, and then you go on your way like a normal human being, instead of being a degenerate like the rest of us and stressing out over these things for hours on end. You come back to your lineup and you're looking at this, you're thinking, why do I keep playing Eric Almirola? He keeps finishing in the 30s. Why are we so high on this guy? Last week, 6 laps in, he absolutely gets just ran over by Ricky Stenhouse Jr., gets punted into the wall. Eric was flabbergasted during his interview. He couldn't quite believe that Ricky was in such a hurry to get up to the front that he just punted him out of the way. And Kurt Busch, he got some help from Bubba. That's why he's starting back this far. I mean, it was just scenarios that these drivers could not help. So with the formula, they're starting back here. But the thing we have to talk about is, what is their upside with these prices, where they're starting. Kurt, he's got a couple of top 5 finishes here. You got to go back to 2018 before the different packages were implemented. Based on what he's been doing this year, like, I think you might get 8 to 9 positions out of Kurt, and that's it. And I'm not going to pay that for 8,700 on DraftKings. I'm not going to pay that for 8,500 on FanDuel. Eric Almirola, and perhaps it's just an unhealthy obsession for me as a fan of his, because I root for the guy. You know, he's one of these guys that got early in his career, and this has had nothing to do with DFS, but he basically got screwed out of a race-winning ride while he was at Joe Gibbs. He got removed out of a seat, I believe it was at Milwaukee, because the sponsor wanted Denny Hamlin to finish that race. So Eric has to jump out of the car. Denny comes in there, who had just previously left Sonoma, California for practice earlier that day. Denny gets in the car, wins the race. Later at the end of that year, Eric leaves Joe Gibbs as one of their developmental drivers. And then Eric's had to just continually build himself up with low-tier program and then work his way up. And now he's at Stewart Haas, and he's got a fantastic partnership with Smithfield Foods, which is why he got in the 10 car. So it pains me to see these just horrible finishes, because if this crap continues, then you can bet that there's going to be a different driver in the 10 next year. Eric's better than where he's been finishing is the long way of the short way of saying this. He's a guy that very well could finish with a top 10. He's done fairly well in this package this year. last week, notwithstanding. At 8,200, I thought maybe his price might get dropped down a little bit by DraftKings, but still, starting in the 30s, I can understand why he's where he's at. That's a guy. It's tough to get to him in cash, especially if you're doing Truex plus Larson, Truex plus Hamlin. Heck, if you're doing Truex plus anybody in the 10K range.
Mm-hmm.
But Eric is definitely a guy that I think can finish his day with a top 10. The rest of these guys are strictly tournament plays. Like Harvick, I don't know if he can lead laps anymore. Logano, he's missing his crew chief. He might get you a top 10 finish, but I don't know what the impact of him missing his crew chief is going to be. Byron, I mean, it's another top 10 finish for Byron week after week after week. 8,900 is a little bit more than I want to pay for a top 10 finish, but God, that car's been so good, and he's been so good this year that if we have some shenanigans on that competition caution, what's to rule out Byron from being the leader coming out of the pits? Blaney, I'm not too high on either of the Penske drivers, and that's going to spill over to Blaney. And then Christopher Bell, that is your possibly cheapest dominator. That's also a tournament play that you're going to find on the board for me. Bell was a top 5 driver last week. He was well on his way to a top 5, and then he cut down a tire with 4 laps to go. Bell, I think, is probably going to be your best pivot off of Eric Almirola if you're looking for one.
I mentioned this question. I'm pretty sure we know the answer based on what you said there, but White says, can we trust Kurt Busch to get into the top 15 based on what you said there? I don't think that you trust him to get into the top 15 this week.
No, and I don't know. Like originally I wanted to blame Kurt Busch's lackluster results on a teammate transition from Larson and Matt Kenseth, that kind of veteran leadership to Ross Chastain. But we've gotten to this point where Ross Chastain is doing better than Kurt Busch in practically, if not the exact same equipment. So what is there to explain why Chastain is continually a top 20 driver, but Busch isn't getting these results? And I mean, I don't want to, God, could it be age? Because I mean, Kurt is no spring chicken. We were talking about a driver in his 40s, and at some point, drivers hit a wall, and when they hit that wall, they slide down it like Wile E. Coyote hitting the brick wall when he saw a painted hole there. Perhaps he's dealing with some issues like that, and the talent is starting to slowly slip away as the age increases. Who knows what's going on? Maybe this is just random chaos that we can't explain that's going on with this number 1 team. Regardless, I don't trust Kurt Busch. If DraftKings would have priced him down in the mid 7K range, then we're talking about a possibility. However, here at 8,700, I mean, I would rather pay $500 more for Bowman, who has literal top 5 upside, or just go down to Almirola.
Of course, this is the Awesemo NASCAR DFS Strategy Show, and we are sponsored by Monkey Knife Fight. With Monkey Knife Fight, you are in charge with their player props contest. All you got to do is go to monkeyknifefight.com. There, you see it right there at the top of the screen, where you can sign up and get an instant first match deposit up to $100 when you use that promo code Awesemo. And of course, you can go in there, look at their more or less contests they have there, in terms of NASCAR, more or less on their fantasy score. So be sure to check out our friends over there at Monkey Knife Fight, monkeyknifefight.com. Use that promo code Awesemo for instant first match deposit up to $100. Let's move on to tier number 3. This will be the drivers in the 7K and 6K range. So we got Matty D, we got Custer, Reddick, Austin Dillon, Jones, Stenhouse Jr., Bubba, Newman, Busher, Chastain, Suarez, McDowell, and Briscoe. Where do you want to start off here? Is there a driver that piques your interest in this group?
Oh God, Custer, we can talk about him. Like if you don't want to spend the extra $500 to get to Almirola, you're getting a cheaper version of Almirola with Custer starting 30th at $500 less on DraftKings and $1,000 less on FanDuel. Almirola's definitely got the higher ceiling. They probably both have the same floor. So for that, the better option in cash games may be just saving the money with Custer instead of playing Almirola. But I mean, know that whatever you think of Almirola this year, it's been the same thing with Custer. Matty D, I want to like Matty D, but the thing that we should take note of, especially this year, is that the weeks that Matty D peaks are the weeks that we see multiple cautions, especially towards the end. He's been really good on restarts. Pierce Dietrich pointed that out this week in one of his podcasts, that the way that Matty D has been excelling is that he survives the attrition, and then when there's late cautions, he's been a fantastic restarter. So he's been able to improve his position beyond what his average has been, and then excel that way, get into the top 5, get into the top 10. This is a race that I expect to be fairly clean. And if it's going to be like last week, I mean, Matt started in the top 10 and he fell, and that setup was bad. And if this setup is going to be the same thing that Penske's going to be rolling out, then if I don't like Logano and I don't like Keselowski and I don't like Blaney, then that necessarily means that I'm not going to like Matty D, even with him being fairly priced starting 18th. He's probably a driver that's going to lose a couple of positions and finish around 21st. God. And when you look at everybody from Tyler Reddick at 7,600 all the way down to Chase Briscoe at 6,100, I've got them all highlighted in the race sheets as GPP plays. These are all guys that you should mix and match around with in your tournament lineups. Suarez, because he starts 24th, he is the furthest starting back of anybody in this tier. So perhaps that makes him viable for cash. But to be quite honest, if I'm having to pick between Ross Chastain, who continues to give me top 20 finishes, and Daniel Suarez, who I don't know if I can trust him. Last week, if last week was any indication of what we're going to see this week, then I mean, I don't know if I won any of the 99 team. That he was another car that was just set up horribly and just dropped through the field and was fighting for position, a couple of laps down with the rest of that ilk. The milk toast, but the God honest truth answer for practically everybody from Reddick all the way down to Chase Briscoe at 6,100 is I'm not enthusiastic about anybody, but these are all drivers that you probably need to mix and match in your lineups, because a couple of these guys like Reddick or Austin Dillon could end up finishing with a top 10 day. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I like him better this week. He does better at tracks where there's multiple grooves, and Darlington ended up being a one-track groove because of the I'm going to say primarily because of the heat last week. But there should be multiple grooves that should give Ricky some hope in this race last year in this equipment. The first Drydene 311 race, he finished 10th. So can we get a 10th place out of Ricky at this track? Sure. I think he's capable of doing that. Got Newman and Buscher. They scare the fire out of you where they start, but they've been running really well in this package, and they could just simply hold position. There's nobody here that I'm just excited about. Maybe like if you're looking for just one person to get out from underneath, it's probably Michael McDowell. He is not doing well in this package. And even though he's starting 21st, I think he's probably going to end up somewhere like 27th, 28th. But the rest of these guys, you just mix and match. That is simply all it is.
Of course, Anthony, I do see your question there. We're going to get to your question here momentarily, but do want to put a little spotlight on some of our subscribers that have been cashing big in their lineups. Of course, they're now part of the Awesemo Hall of Fame. Of course, you got to rock that Awesemo avatar, which you can get at awesemo.com/avatar. Place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 entries. Of course, then tweet your wins into the Awesemo HOF Twitter account, and you'll win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. Here you see Peter Hanley in NBA win 156K in 3 different contests, single bullets. Good, kudos to you, bro. In that one, Devin Clifton in the NBA taking first in 2 places. Lee in the NBA Piggy Bank taking down second. Neil taking down first place in an MLB contest. Also, Smoking Cutler taking down first and third in the Minimax in MLB. And also, Buck Up taking down first there in the pitch hit there in MLB. So congratulations. Of course, download that Awesemo avatar pick at awesemo.com/avatar. Tweet your wins on Twitter at Awesemo HOF. You win a free month of Awesemo Plus Platinum when you place in the top 3 of a contest with over 5,000 entries. Sometimes you even see some of the staff here at Awesemo gets into that as well. I know my buddy Pete got in there with the showdown contest there a couple of weeks ago. So always love seeing those wins from our listeners and subscribers to Awesemo.com. Let's move over to tier number 4. So these are drivers 6K and below. So we got Ryan Preece, Corey LaJoie, Anthony Alfredo, Josh Berry, James Davidson, Garrett Smithley, Josh Balicki, BJ McLeod, Quinn Hoff, and Cody Ware. By the way, FanDuel just put pricing out on Josh Berry, $3,000. So over on DraftKings, he is 5,300, starting 29th here. And I know Anthony wanted to know your thoughts on him.
I want to be enthusiastic about Berry. Berry's had a fantastic story, going from just a late model racer trying to break in, became friends with Dale Jr. He runs Dale Jr.'s late model car, got his shot in Xfinity, ended up winning at Martinsville. And he's been running top 5, top 10 in that car, really, really enthused about the guy. But I mean, this is a different animal, different level of drivers, in the Xfinity series. He's got one of the best cars. He's got enough talent to win. Now he's in that 77 that Justin Haley has been struggling the last couple of weeks just to get a 29th or a 30th out of it. He's going to have to start at the rear. That's not so concerning when we're getting a competition caution. But God, I'm scared for his prospects, and this is going to be a trial by fire here at Dover. At 5,300 on DraftKings, I think you're paying that for negative place differential. I really don't think that you're going to get anything positive out of Berry tomorrow. And this is the whole freaking theme of the 750 horsepower package for these smaller teams, is that they're fighting amongst themselves to see who can finish the best in the 30s, which. And these guys need attrition in order just to get into the 20s. And I don't think that's what you're going to be seeing out of this race tomorrow. So you're trying to say, okay, if I need to go down to the likes of Alfredo, Berry, Davison, Smithley, Billicky, so on and so forth, who out of these guys is going to be the one that's going to finish 27th or 28th place? And then there's the chance that nobody wrecks out, and then they're stuck back in the 30s. And yeah, you paid $4,900 for Josh Billicky starting 37th, and he finished 33rd, and you ended up with 10 points. Yeah.
Who in this tier, when we're talking about throwing out a punt play to get to some of those, high salary drivers, is the best play, do you believe?
Oh Lord. If we're just talking strictly below 5K, looking at these 4, Billicky, McLeod, Half, and Ware, like that is like the best definition of a punt, then we're probably talking about Half, starting 35th at 4,600. I like him a little bit better than Cody Ware. Now, Cody is getting some Dover experience today in the Xfinity series, but overall, I think I like Half a little bit better. When we're looking at just everybody in general at 5,900 and below, I hate to be a wet blanket, but it's so tough to get enthusiastic about any of these guys. Like Ryan Preece, he might pick up a couple of spots. Corey LaJoie, he might finish 25th or 24th. Alfredo, it feels like he's going to finish where he starts. And God, for the most part, I think most of these guys are going to end up where they started the race, because there's just not going to be any attrition. And this is something that I brought up in the Gas and Go article, is maybe your best route is doing whatever you can to actually avoid playing these guys. They have such limited upside from week to week. You need a race like Martinsville in order for them to peak. We've had 4 races in the 750 horsepower package. 2 times out of 4, the optimal has had a punt play, but the 2 times that happened, it's because the driver started so far back that he picked up tons of place differential as he got a top 20. A race like this, I don't think that's going to happen. Now, we have this wrench being thrown at us in this game of dodgeball because of how high the salaries are for the guys that we want to get in. So necessarily because we're wanting to pay $11K for these top 3 drivers, the optimal may end up with one of these guys simply because they finished the best out of the rest of them. But perhaps the best way to approach this range on DraftKings is to do whatever you can to not have to play them.
Yeah, it's a great advice there. Of course, if you do have any questions, be sure to line those up in our chat, right? Whether it's in our premium Slack channel, which of course, when you join Awesemo Plus, you join a community. Of course, we all got all the great tools and data that we have over there, but also one of the advantages you get with a membership is you get access to our premium Slack channel, which of course you can ask Phill questions in the NASCAR channel, or of course we always have office hours. I'll be doing my office hours here once this show concludes, as I'll be in there answering your UFC questions. And of course it's just a great tool that we have over at awesemo.com. Mention some questions we'll get into here. Wyatt wanting to know, what should we expect from Eric Jones?
God, Eric was another guy that just kicked me straight in the groin last week, because I did everything I could to not have exposure to him, and just by, I want to say, attrition or sheer luck, he ended up being the only guy in that range that really kind of survived the race. Kurt wrecked out, Eric Almirola wrecked out, Alex Bowman didn't wreck out, but God, he really didn't do anything to merit his salary last week. And Eric was well on his way to finishing with a top 10 finish before he had some late issues. The 43 team is what we've seen with Bubba, and it's what we've seen with Eric. Sometimes they get up to the occasion and they'll give their driver a top 15 car, and then other times it is just sheer trash. If they excelled last week, and if they can take those race notes from Darlington and apply them to this week, then maybe there's a little bit of hope. I do like Eric better than I did last week, simply because he is $1,000 cheaper than what was going on last week. So it makes him a little bit more viable to play this week. I don't know if I want to make that choice in cash, but in tournaments, sure, go ahead.
Be sure to follow Awesemo right here on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Of course, we have a ton of great content for you each and every day. Whether you're looking for NBA coverage, MLB coverage, whatever it may be, we have got you covered. So be sure to subscribe to us if you're not already subscribed. Also, be sure to hit the notification bell so you know when a new show is live here on the channel. And also, give us a thumbs up. We always do appreciate seeing those thumbs up on our videos. Jay asking, he goes, Amarola bounce back should be chalky starting 32nd. We talked a little bit about Amarola. 32nd, obviously, place differential. That number does stick out to you, but there is a price point to that of, do you want to pay that price point?
Yeah, this is going to be the thing that limits Almirola's ownership. And if I'm looking at our ownership projections for tomorrow, Almirola isn't even in the top 10, and it's because you have to make a decision. How many of these guys above 10K am I going to get into this lineup, especially with the 3 that are priced above 11K? And like you said, even if you do 2 of these guys, then you're staring at trying to fill out the rest of your 4 roster spots with 6K drivers, or maybe going up a little bit into the 7K. So when you necessarily add Eric Jones into that equation, it really forces you down into the 5K and the 6K, the lower 6K range. So I definitely expect a bounce back for Almirola. I just don't know how chalky he's going to be, because it's going to be super tough for people to build a 2 dominator lineup plus Almirola and then be comfortable with the punt plays.
Let's wrap up this edition of the Also NASCAR DFS Strategy Show with this question. Can we trust Bubba Wallace, or have we concluded that he's not going to perform this year?
Oh, the question that we're going to have to ask, and we probably won't find this out until the end of the year, is just, how associated with Joe Gibbs is this car? And if this car is getting a lot of R&D and equipment from Joe Gibbs, then the problem probably is Bubba. I mean, there's going to be a legitimate discussion about if Eric Jones was in this car, would it be doing that much better? But once again, Bubba, you're getting him starting 22nd. He should theoretically pick up some place differential. But Lord, what we've seen out of Bubba, out of this package this year, he may not do anything. He may finish exactly where he starts.
Of course, that is now going to do it for this edition of the Awesemo NASCAR DFS Strategy Show. Do want to thank our sponsor, Monkey Knife Fight. Be sure to sign up and use that promo code Awesemo for an instant first match deposit up to $100. Of course, come up here later today at 5 p.m. Eastern time. We got UFC Live Before Lock, and then at 6 p.m. Eastern time, it will be MLB Live Before Lock. And of course, be sure to take advantage of that promo we got going on right now. You see at the bottom of the screen. You can use that promo code Gold Rush for 25% off your first month of Awesemo Plus Platinum. So that's going to do it for us. Of course, if you ever have any questions for Phil, you can hop in that premium Slack channel, ask Phil, and good luck tomorrow with your NASCAR lineups.